You've survived another week. Thank you for listening, downloading, and supporting the Black Man with a Gun Show. You know, November 2017 marks the 10th year of this show. This whole month, I want to talk about all the fun stuff that I've had. Things that you've done for me, the things that I've done for you, the folks that I've interviewed, the fun times I've had over the 540 plus episodes that have been here. But this week has been challenging. There was a shooting at the Walmart in Colorado. There was a shooting at a church in Texas. There's some stuff that we have to think about. Christians and guns. The Second Amendment. Concealed carry. Where do we go from here?
BlackManWithAGun.com. Ken Blanchard's Pro Gun Podcast.
In November of 2007, I plugged in a microphone, bootlegged some software, and began to podcast. Much of what I learned in the beginning was from a guy by the name of Mark Vandenberg, who had successfully started a podcast called Gun Rights Radio, which led to a Gun Rights Radio network. Mark was way ahead of the curve 10 years ago. Being on an interview with Mark and being inspired to do something I wanted to do all of my life, to be in radio, I created this podcast. It was originally called the Urban Shooter Podcast, and it allowed me to pretend I had my own radio station. So I did everything that I would want to do on radio. Prior to 2007, beginning at 1986, I became a firearms instructor for the Central Intelligence Agency. I helped qualify people, armed duty, around the country. Everybody carried a gun back then for the government, just about, at least in our department, our agency. And somebody had to be qualified. I was a recent Marine Corps veteran and spoiled by the CIA. They actually sent me to a whole bunch of courses, training from all over the country, had folks come to us, we went to others, and I wanted to share my new knowledge with my community. I started a company called African American Arms and Instruction. I didn't know how hard business was going to be. My community didn't want to hear from a young guy who didn't have any look of age to him talk about guns, whether for safety, self-defense, sport, hunting, didn't matter. It was a tough business to start in 1991. But like all businesses, you have to have your own people to support it. And I realized that it would be easier if I had a crew of people who look like me support this business. So I created an entity to both support the business and to give me feedback to what I could do for my community. I created the 10th Cavalry Gun Club in 1992, which grew pretty fast. And I got a chance to learn more history, more cultural things about the people I was trying to serve. Little quirks and things that make us different as a people. And the things which actually are no different than any other community, but we just didn't know it. You know, there's like 5 groups in every gun culture, every gun community. There's the national group. There's the paramilitary group. There are the military veterans and law enforcement. There are the college educated and curious group. And there's the ones who have been victims of violent crime and choose to say never again. Those 5 are in every group, no matter what color, race, ethnicity, sexual preference, none of that stuff. All of it. All those groups. All those people are the same. We just look different, but have the same needs and wants. Right around that time, I was also trying to find out what the big boys were doing. The folks who were making this money, the real money. Politics, the industry, and got involved with the American Sport Shooting Council, Law Enforcement Alliance of America, the National Rifle Association, the Cato Institute, the Second Amendment Foundation, Gun Owners of America, to name a few. I am a quick study, so I learned quickly about politics, about the Constitution, about the players in this group, the money people, and the folks who just don't want the gun thing to happen, the anti folks, the gun banners, the grabbers. From 1991 to about 1999, I've been involved in several court cases, testified in state houses, provided, you name it, commercials, voiceovers, been to rallies, spoke all over the place. All this before Google, Facebook, Instagram, and the social media, which we take for granted today. At the time, I was the enigma. I was the poster child for Black America. I was the one that was used and reviewed and copied and spoken about around the world, actually, as the black man with a gun. And that's how the site came out in the first book in 2000. While folks were talking about Y2K and what happens when the grid goes down and the world goes into chaos, my gun club, which had some remnants from all over our culture, people who knew how to can and hunt, we had classes and we did our own little prepping thing in 2000 to prepare for Y2K. It was pretty special. And all during this time, there was a movement, a concealed carry movement. Now, this movement was not happening in the black community, but it was happening in the rest of America. And so, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, became a mantra of more than just a few people. Taking some words from a book by David Workman and Alan Gottlieb, they said that amid the apparently never-ending debate over the Second Amendment, a discussion steeped in emotion and denial from gun prohibitionists who, after having lost the argument over whether the amendment protects and affirms an individual civil right or so-called collective right of states to form and maintain militias, have stubbornly acknowledged that the right is an individual one, which became a new front in the battle over firearm civil rights. This battle took on a new urgency and complexion after many of the attacks that have happened over time. Now, we've advanced a few rungs up the civil rights ladder, beyond the point where most, but hardly all, gun control advocates begrudgingly agree people have a right to keep a gun in their home. However, the most extreme anti-gun groups, such as Michael Bloomberg's backed Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, continue to abhor the notion that law-abiding citizens can actually bear arms, that is, to carry a defensive firearm on your person outside the home or place of business for personal protection. Concealed carry has been a great movement and success. There's a growing population that wants to be armed. By some estimates, as many as 11 to 12 million plus citizens are licensed to carry across the U.S. That's a lot of people. As the late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia wrote in his majority opinion in District of Columbia versus Dick Anthony Heller, which struck down the handgun ban in D.C. in June 2008, he said, "Whatever the reason, handguns are the most popular weapon chosen by Americans for self-defense in the home, and a complete prohibition of their use is invalid." 2 years later, in June 2010, the High Court again issued a Second Amendment ruling in McDonald versus City of Chicago, a Second Amendment Foundation case that incorporated that ruling to the states. That is, that the individual right to keep and bear arms are not only placed a limit on the federal government, but also on state and local governments. Now, while it seems clear that some appointed for life federal court judges still decline to see it that way and hand down opinions reflective of this state of denial, it remains that the citizens have this right and increasing numbers of them are exercising it. In early 2015, Pew Research released a startling report that there had been something of a sea change in the attitudes of Americans about firearms. Based on a survey in December of 2014, Pew revealed that for the first time, quote, more Americans say that protecting gun rights is more important than controlling gun ownership by a margin of 52% to 46%. In some elections, that would be considered a landslide disparity. Even more significant was the overwhelming shift in the public attitude about having guns in a home. Pew alluded to a Gallup poll in October 2014, noted that 63% of Americans believe having a gun in a home makes them safer, while 30% think homes with guns are more dangerous. This was an eyebrow-raising reversal of a similar survey 15 years ago that found that 51% of Americans questioned believe that guns in a home made them less safe, while only 35% thought guns made a home safer. Perhaps not so surprisingly was something else that Gallup survey revealed. Republicans, 81% of them, are nearly twice as likely to believe guns in the home make it safer than Democrats at 41%, according to Gallup. This tends to amplify the earlier discussions that Democrats are more supportive of gun control. Now, all of this means what to you? Having been in this space since 1991 officially, I have seen the increase of concealed carry, the increase of the right to carry, the movement itself grow. I have seen the increase of women that can be identified at the ranges, in culture, and in industry, the money that's being made by industry people and politicians and organizations that cater to both the growth. I've also seen a growth in the number of so-called minorities, the Africans, the Latinos, the Asians, and even those who are in the gay, lesbian, transgendered, the alphabet group, LGBTQI, and I'm probably missing some, have grown over time. But we still, minorities, are still the smaller number. And because of it, we don't get the attention, except for by diverse groups that know that there's strength in diversity, the groups who are using that platform to show that they're okay. But it doesn't change the needle for any gun companies or industry reps or any of that stuff that makes any money. That's still the same. Now, I hope that came out right. But what I meant to say, if you still didn't get it, was that there is an increase of African Americans in the gun movement. But because we don't produce any hard numbers, then the industry itself is not going to cater to us. And so there's been a rise of black gun groups across the country growing and using social media to grow their platforms, like the National African American Gun Association, which has found some acceptance among the National Rifle Association, Second Amendment Foundation, United States Concealed Carry. There's been a few groups who have reached out to them because the numbers are growing. And then there's the groups that don't seek attention that way, not trying to get sponsored, not trying to get any deals for anything, and they're completely self-sustaining. So how do you grow a group which won't get support from any outside forces? You have to make your organization a niche. So how do you grow a niche these days? Most of the time, it's being exclusive. That means not diverse. And unfortunately, that means playing off the fears of people. Back in the 1800s, there was a group known as the Ku Klux Klan. They came out strong and then withered away by the 1900s. But the resurgence of the Klan in the 1920s also coincided with the anti-radical and anti-immigrant hysterica of the thing they called the Red Scare back in the day. The second KKK was founded in 1915. Its goal was to preserve the white Protestant civilization and instigate the reestablishment of white supremacy. The second era of the Klan promoted the ideology of Americanism and targeted African Americans, Mexicans, new immigrants, Asians, Jews, and Catholics, not to mention Asians and any radical un-American group. This rebirth and resurgence of the Klan peaked at about 4 to 5 million people by 1928. And I said unfortunate because there are groups that are growing right now, organizations, growing because of the same thing. The ideology of Americanism or anti-Americanism. People who are targeting cultures that are different from theirs. And the reestablishment of white supremacy. One of my pet peeves right now is that there is a thought process that many of the white Americans that are in the gun industry are racist. And that just pisses me off because there are real racists. There are real white supremacists. Anybody who will give you a gun is your brother. Anybody trying to take it away from you is your real enemy. And there is a growing culture of stupidity, of ignorance, of segregation that's self-imposed, that I know is there to help grow the numbers. It's there, it's the cheap fruit, it's the low-hanging fruit that you can strike fear and raise your numbers. But we got to realize who our enemy is, and it's not. The real enemy of our freedom is ignorance. It's racism. It's segregation. It's gun control.
This portion of the show is sponsored by CrossbreedHolsters.com. Crossbreed Holsters has gained national recognition as a maker of the best and most functional concealment holsters available on the market today. Each holster is handcrafted to ensure your firearm is safe and secure while carrying, combined with the best customer service in the industry. Visit CrossbreedHolsters.com.
Next up is my friend and brother Michael J. Woodland.
Thank you, Ken, and welcome to another Tips and Review segment. I am Michael Woodland, and today we're going to discuss being aware of your surroundings. Tis the season where we are all getting into the spirit of the holidays, with this year coming to an end. To many, that means spending large sums of money and having merchandise on your person as you make your rounds from store to store. To some, this sounds like a yearly tradition of fun, getting items for loved ones and friends. But what about the people who lurk with other intentions? This is the time where you need to know and understand your surroundings to prevent anything from happening to you or your loved ones. If you are that person who is spending large sums of money, make sure you do not expose your wad of cash for everyone to see to make yourself a target of prey, or openly expose your pen when buying that large smart screen TV for the living room. You have to keep your head on a swivel and always be on the defense. If you feel your life is in danger in the event something takes place in the parking lot or when you pull up at your house, how would the situation be handled? In understanding your surroundings, you might have to resort to some form of hand-to-hand without exposing your firearm. In the event you have to use your firearm, being more cautious of what is beyond your target in a public setting will be paramount in that situation. Here are some tips we can do to eliminate any harm coming our way while out this holiday season. 1. Do not walk while looking into your phone. Pay attention to the people around you and where you park your vehicle. Look at how people are dressed and the body language that people are displaying. If something does not look or feel right to you, leave the area fast. 2. Whether you are buying an item for yourself or just a gift, some larger items that will bring extra attention to you might be better ordered online and delivered to your home. Pulling out large amounts of money makes you an easy target. Some people might be posing as shoppers, but looking to see who they can prey upon for their own profit. 3. As you are walking around, make sure every so many steps you are looking over your shoulder to make sure you are not being followed. Use mirrors and anything with a reflection that will give you a form of an advantage to observe your surroundings. 4. Make sure you inform someone where you are going and how long you will be there. The buddy system still applies even when you think you are in a safe environment, but do not never downplay your safety, especially in a public setting. 5. Change your routes every so often, not to make a pattern for someone to pick up on. 6. Be safe this holiday season and do not allow your small children to stray away from you no more than 3 steps. Have a contingency plan in the event something happens, and most importantly, have your emergency contacts on speed dial. For those who are looking to contact me, visit blackmanwiththegun.com and under the Leaders tab, click on my name, Michael Woodland, and shoot me an email. Until next week, keep shooting, keep practicing, and have fun. Back to you, Ken.
That's good stuff, Big Mike. Man, 10 years, I'm still underneath the washer and the dryer. Hope you guys don't hear that. This portion of the show has been brought to you by the United States Concealed Carry Association. The USCCA has been providing education, training, and self-defense insurance to responsibly armed Americans since 2003. Join Tim Schmidt and myself here at usconcealedcarry.com. Oh yeah, and another thing about the USCCA, there is a link tab on blackmanwiththegun.com. if you will go there and click on that link, I'll get credit for it. So if you're going to consider becoming a part of the USCCA family, do it from my site, please.
Direct from our newsroom in Washington, in color.
Multiple people have been shot at a church in Sutherland Springs, Texas.
Shooting at a church in Sutherland Springs, Texas.
A Fox News alert, the constable in Wilson County telling Fox News that they are now pulling bodies out of a church after responding to an active shooter situation in Sutherland Springs, Texas. That's about 45 minutes outside of San Antonio.
The Wilson County Sheriff's Office told the Wilson County News that there are multiple people wounded and multiple deaths. The shooter has reportedly been taken down. One witness on the ground told CBS News she saw people being airlifted near the site of the First Baptist Church. The Connolly Memorial Medical Center confirmed they have received multiple victims related to the shooting.
We have spoken with officials who say FBI and first responders are on the scene of what I'm told is an active site here in Sutherland Springs, Texas. This is about 30 miles east of San Antonio. And I just spoke with a witness, a woman, a cashier at a gas station just across the street. She told me right around 11:30 Central Time in Sutherland Springs, she heard what she estimated to be 20 shots fired. She says that's when church would be underway for their Sunday service at First Baptist Church there. And customers in her store were calling 911, among those getting the police's attention. She told me that police responded to the scene very quickly. She said she's seen 4 helicopters take off with victims inside, multiple ambulances responding. But again, the FBI and first responders are on the scene. You see a feed here from our affiliate KSAT out of San Antonio in Sutherland Springs, Texas, on the scene here as we hope to learn more about what transpired there this morning.
Authorities responded to the First Baptist Church. Initial reports indicate a suspect entered the church and opened fire 11:30 a.m. Central Time, which would be about an hour and a half ago. A scene on the reporters says there were a number of Air Life medical helicopters dispatched. Another reporter on the scene also tweeting out in the past couple of minutes, Liz, that the shooter is dead. There is no more active threat, but that is not something that we have yet been able to confirm. The constable, though, confirming to Fox News there was a mass shooting and, quote, we are working on removing bodies. Clearly a awful situation on Sunday there in Texas.
Here's what I know. It can be very difficult for people of faith to accept the idea that violence and evil must be met with violence. Unfortunately, the results of failing to do so can be lethal. We need to get our minds right to make a plan and take care of our families and our friends. A worship center is a soft target for anybody bent on doing evil. Yes, evil. Evil exists. We who go to church, the Christians, must realize and get a realistic mindset and realize there's no sacred safe spaces anywhere anymore. You need to recognize that there's danger everywhere and know that Scripture even supports that we defend ourselves. Even lambs have teeth. Jesus never taught pacifism. He never did. And we need to inform armed, trained security teams for every congregation, every synagogue, every temple, every mosque. Going to Romans in the New American Standard Bible, chapter 15, verses 1 through 3. And it says, "Now we who are strong ought to bear the weaknesses of those without strength, and not just please ourselves. Each of us is to please his neighbor for his good, to his edification. For even Christ did not please himself, but as it is written, the reproaches of those who reproached you fell on me." All right, what am I saying there? Consider this. If I am armed that day and you are not, who is able to, quote, bear the weaknesses of others, the victims, and who is the other person, quote, pleasing himself by his helplessness? On my first shot, the criminal will turn his sole attention to me. The innocent can now escape. The message was written with the intent that the verses should have the same impact on a person in the 21st century as it did in the first century. Author of the message, Eugene Peterson, renders Romans 15:1-3 a different way. He says, Those of us who are strong and able in the faith need to step in and lend a hand to those who falter and just not do what is convenient for us. Strength is for service, not status. Each one of us needs to look after the good of the people around us, asking ourselves, how can I help? That's exactly what Jesus did. He didn't make it easy for himself by avoiding people's troubles, but waded right in and helped out. I took on the troubles of the troubled, is the way Scripture puts it. The Bible tells us to study diligently, to be approved by God in all our actions, accurately handling Scripture when teaching it and living it in a practical manner. My study of the Bible tells me that self-defense and defense of others is part of God's mission for me. Convinced of that, I do not have to be timid about legally using force. Assured by His Word and trained by legal knowledge and physical discipline, I stand ready to demonstrate God's love and mine for others in any situation. Whether the need is a comforting word or an accurate shot, I am ready. How about you? If you are a pacifist, have you actually researched and tested your philosophy of pacifism based on the Bible? Is your pacifism approved by God? Easy question, right? You see, before you apply an idea or concept to your life, you need to test it biblically. Pacifism and self-defense are kind of subjects like that. They're concepts like that. And so to adopt either idea without critical study is to presume we know the will of God. I've been protecting people my whole life. I mean, before I was even armed, I was a safety patrol. It's in my DNA. When I became a minister of the gospel, my heart has been and always is for God and for His people. We assume, or those who are not in the church, that guns equate to murder, and they do not. It is the heart that determines that, not the tool, not the machine. Listening to the news today was troubling. Today, men in our churches seem inadequately informed or trained, even given our church history, the current state of affairs and dangers, and few understand their roles and responsibilities in their duty to protect themselves, their family, and a service in their communities, to ensure safe environments. The first element of any defensive plan is to accept that threat is possible. You have to believe and accept that as a reality, that there are bad people in the world, purely evil people who may wish to do your church, you and yours harm. Next, you need to accept that an attack could happen at any time. And after you accept those two things, the next thing is on you. Will you be ready? What happened today in Texas and Charleston, and probably one too many places that haven't been reported by the news, is that evil exists, that people are killing Christians and religious figures every day, that those in the faith remain unarmed and ill-equipped because of a lack of knowledge. We have to do better, y'all. We have to do better. My heart and prayer is for the people of Texas and for our great country. We can get through this. We can, and we will. A few days ago, I think it was November 1st in Thornton, Colorado, at a Walmart, a gunman opened fire. And as several people hit the deck, several other people grabbed their own guns. My question for you in the age of concealed carry, in the age of where there are more people packing now than ever before, training becomes even more important. You see, something that's always been the case is that the civilian, the one who chooses to carry a firearm, is often more trained than the police officer wearing a badge. What? What are you saying? What I'm saying is you have a person who is employed by a county or state or government, and by duty, they carry that sidearm for their protection. They have to qualify at least every year, and they do so as a duty, not as a sport, not as a recreational thing, because they have to. And most of them don't do it with any pleasure, with any glee. They do it because they have to. They wait until it's time for their qualification, and then they go and they do it. It's like brushing your teeth. It's something you have to do. That's different from you, the person who spent hours researching, paid for a firearm, researching for training and a good teacher, has taken more than one class, has studied lethal force, has been to Masada Ayyub's course, has trained multiple different disciplines. A lot different from the law enforcement officer. Yeah. So what do we do now? According to reports, last thing I saw was that the well-intentioned gun owners set the stage for chaos, stalling efforts to capture the suspect, and the bad guy actually shot 3 people and killed 3 people, but none of the armed civilians fired their weapons, and the suspect managed to flee the store. We, as civilians, have to realize that not every instance requires us to act. If it's not your life in jeopardy, we don't need extra Rambos. We don't need extra people to save the day. Nothing happened with the armed civilians this time. It's a good time for us. I mean, you can celebrate that we were calm under fire. But still, the potential for trouble was there. We as a public, we as the informed public, the smarter of the crew, have to be smarter still. Let me know what you think about Colorado and Walmart, as well as what happened with the church shooting. You see, we have more than one responsibility. Not only do you have to become a marksman and know how to hit your target, you must know when not to shoot, when not to draw, when not to put yourself in trouble, when to wait. You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. But I want to hear your thoughts as well, because there's some insights that you have that I don't, and I want to share them with our family. Plato said that ignorance was the root and the stem of all evil. Do you want a new podcast to listen to? Check out my new one. It's called Speak Life. It's a must listen for every man and woman who wears a badge, owns a gun, hunts, or believes that freedom is life's first right. Speak Life podcast is going to give you what you missed, make you smarter, give you less stress, less fear, and more faith in God. The same God folks are trying hard to trivialize, marginalize, and misunderstand. Speak Life podcast, now available on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, and Google Play. Well, that's a wrap for this first episode in the month of November 2017, celebrating our 10th year of a podcast. If you're in D.C., make sure you check out D.C. Podfest coming up next week during the Veterans Holiday and the Marine Corps birthday. To all the vets out there, and just in case I don't get a chance to holler at you then, thank you so much for your service. Thank you for what you've done for our country. There is so much going on in the world. Remember that if you need to talk to somebody, that I'm here for you. You can call me. I got a full-time ministry happening now. It's called BlanchardMinistries.com, and you can find me there. Thanks to Michael for all he's done. Thanks to Crossbreed Holsters for being my sponsor for almost the whole 10 years. For my friends that take care of me at Patreon.com, thank you for keeping that thing going so that I can stay on the air, stay motivated, and pay these doggone bills. Don't forget to check out USCCA's link on blackmailthegun.com, and I'm going to try to put up a link to this episode in the show notes. Thank you so much for sharing this thing, for making a difference in my life and being who you are. Just in case nobody has told you this today, I love you, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. Until next week, be safe, and God bless. Shalom, baby.
Until next time, friends.
To keep in touch with Ken and his cause, head over to blackmanwithagun.com.